Joining us today is Alison Sargent. She's got the newspapers for us today. Lots of anticipation in the press surrounding this meeting. We've just seen Xi Jinping arriving on the aeroplane in Bali. He's going to be meeting with the US President Joe Biden, isn't he?
That's right. It's happening, of course, on the sidelines of that G20 summit. And in what perhaps could be seen as a bit of a snub of Joe Biden, a lot of the English language Chinese newspapers are not really focusing on this meeting on their front pages today. They're looking just at Xi Jinping. The China Daily, for example, writing that both the G20 and the APEC meetings this week will be monumental in China's diplomacy. Xi's first foreign trips since that latest Communist Party Congress that really further solidified his leadership. In the China Daily's editorial, though, they do address that Biden meeting directly, saying it is a chance to recalibrate Sino-US ties. Still, the paper warns that Beijing, will not sit idle and tolerate any U.S. provocations against its sovereignty and territorial integrity. Meanwhile, the Financial Times is framing this meeting as a test for Joe Biden. They note that this will be his first time meeting Xi Jinping in person as the U.S. president, and it comes at a time when, according to the Financial Times, the country's relations are at their lowest point since normalization in 1979. But it also comes as Biden, they note, has really been buoyed by the success in midterm elections of the Democrats and the news that the Democrats are going to be keeping control of the Senate.
Yeah, talking of those midterm elections, they are, of course, still dominating the US papers, notably the leadership crisis that they've sparked, in fact, within the Republican Party, Alison.
Yeah, Donald Trump is, of course, set to make his big announcement, we imagine, launching his 2024 campaign this Tuesday. But as we read on the front page of USA Today, the disappointing midterm results have really scrambled that GOP contest. Many in the party are now calling for someone else to challenge Donald Trump as the 2024 Republican candidate, notably the man that you see pictured here on their front page, Florida Governor Ron DeSantis. Any potential challenger to Trump, though, would, of course, have a pretty tough battle. As one Republican consultant told USA Today, no one's ever gotten into the mud with Trump and come out better for it. And there's a cartoon from the Times that sort of sums up the situation nicely. I think this is from Sunday's paper, but I still wanted to show it to you. You see the GOP there having a romantic dinner with Ron DeSantis that looks set to be crashed by a very angry Donald Trump. The Republican Party elephant there saying, "Oh my God, it's my ex."
It's a good cartoon, isn't it? They're all about the same size. That's all I could bring to you from that. Let's come to Europe next. We mentioned right at the top of the programme, France and the UK, they signed this deal to collaborate on preventing migrants from crossing the Channel. The French paper Le Monde has published a pretty shocking report about a Channel disaster that took place last year.
Yeah, you might remember this, Stuart. It was one of the worst disasters in decades. It took place almost exactly a year ago in November of 2021. 27 people died crossing the Channel in a small boat, deaths that it seems could have been prevented. We read here in Le Monde that migrants on board made repeated calls to the French Coast Guard when they realized that the boat was sinking, but French rescuers refused to come and help. They instead waited until the boat had drifted into UK territorial waters and then told the people on board that they had to call the UK Coast Guard. Now, Le Monde writes that they don't have the record of the communications on the UK side. This article is based on the records of the French Coast Guard's communications from an ongoing investigation taking place here in France. But one of the few survivors from that disaster said that when they called the UK Coast Guard, well, they were told that the boat was actually drifting into French waters, and so they had to call France to send a boat. So it seems the two sides were just passing the responsibility back and forth until it was too late, hoping that any new deal takes situations like this into account to prevent them. A pretty shocking article from Le Monde.
Come about hope. Staying on the topic of migrants this time, though, we're talking about migrant workers in Qatar who've been building stadiums and other infrastructure ahead of the World Cup. Week to go.
That's right. It kicks off on Sunday. Foreign workers from Nepal specifically are the focus of the front page of France's communist paper L'Humanité today. Their headline here, from Kathmandu to Doha, voyage to the end of hell. They shine the light in particular on how recruitment agencies take advantage of these workers, making them pay exorbitant costs allegedly related to their recruitment. They then loan them the money with interest rates as high as 60%. So these workers arrive in Qatar already hugely in debt. L'Humanité says some of them then can't even get jobs, so they go further into debt. They'd mentioned one man who was driven to suicide. Horrible stories from L'Humanité. Meanwhile, over in the UK, there's a comedian who's putting pressure on football star and World Cup ambassador David Beckham over a deal he signed with Qatar worth millions of pounds. As we read here in Pink News, this is comedian Joe Lycett. I'm not sure how to pronounce his last name.
Yeah,
all right. He says that if Beckham pulls out of this deal, well, he will donate £10,000 to charities supporting queer people in football. If Beckham doesn't back out, though, Joe Lycett says he will shred that money and with it shred, quote, Beckham's status as a gay icon. The website notes that both Beckham and FIFA have received widespread backlash for their promotion of the World Cup in Qatar, where, of course, homosexuality is illegal and still punishable with prison. Beckham has until Sunday, World Cup kickoff, to respond.
Tricky one. Now, something a bit more uplifting to end on, if you like. 11-year-old boy from Leeds. This is an incredible story. City of Leeds in Northern Ireland. 11 years old. He's gotten the highest possible score on the Mensa IQ test.
That's right, Stuart. His name is Yusuf Shah, and he scored 162. To give you some context, Albert Einstein is estimated to have an IQ of 160. So
wow.
162 puts him above Einstein. Very, very smart kid.
Yeah.
You see a picture of him and his family here. His parents said they were very proud, but they're not taking it too seriously. They told him, even if you're talented, you also have to be the hardest worker. So it sounds like he's also being raised to be wise, which is arguably much more important.
Exactly. Hopefully he's got his feet on the ground. He certainly looks like he has anyway. Well done to him. 162. Slightly impressive, isn't it? Alison, thank you very much. Alison Sargent with the papers for us here on France 24.